Okay, welcome back to episode 2 of our CESC podcast. So, as always, my name is Mr. Young, and today we have...
Mr. L once again.
Yeah, cool. So, in our last, podcast, we had this really nice session where we talked about some of the things we did and back in high school, some study tips, and some reflections. So, with this podcast, what we've realized is that we're going to need to put in a bit of a timestamp at the bottom. So that's where you can just look at different parts of this video or this podcast. And so if you have a particular topic you are interested in, you can always just jump back straight to that timestamp and then be able to watch that part of the clip. So you don't have to stay for the whole thing to get what you want to know, such as Mr. Leung's drinking habits for his water.
Yep.
So additionally to that, what we need to also just say is that at the bottom in the description of this video as well, there's going to be a Google form or just basically a form for you to give us some feedback. So we ran that podcast last time and we were trying to look for some feedback just to see how we can grow or change things up. So if we could get some of your feedback as well to optimize the experience for you guys, that'd be amazing as well. So to kind of just move from there, we're going to start with the what teachers need to know segment first. So with last podcast, we kind of talked about how Pokemon cards were back in resurgence, like everyone was starting to sell a lot of podcasts. Not podcasts, Pokemon cards.
Yep.
So I actually didn't play with Pokemon cards that much because I had a different type. I had Yu-Gi-Oh cards. Did you ever own Yu-Gi-Oh cards, Mr. Leung?
I did own Yu-Gi-Oh cards back in the day. It was just one deck though. I actually spent more time playing Magic and, listening to the feedback from the few people that given us some feedback. Half the people wanted us to talk about Pokemon, half the people didn't want us to talk about Pokemon. So I do highly recommend what Mr. Young said at the start, which is even if you don't have any extra comments, if you listen to the video, please give us feedback about whether the length or whether the topic, whatever it is. So that we know what to talk about, what not to. So I won't go into too much detail about the games, like how to play Yu-Gi-Oh or Pokemon or Magic, but I do find it very interesting that, at school we have a Magic club, but, Pokemon cards, people are starting to buy them again and they're starting to trade them and upsell them a lot again. Yeah, because a lot of celebrities are as well, like rappers and YouTubers are really, just selling the cards and making the prices go up like crazy.
With that, I remember that Yu-Gi-Oh cards used to be so popular because there was at least two different types of cards back when I played. By the way, I was not an avid player, so I was very, very just didn't have a strategy. So with Yu-Gi-Oh cards, from memory, there was a shiny type of card where they had this new finish on top, or there was your stock standard cards that you could usually get. And I'm not sure if it's the same with Pokemon, but I think the shinier cards or the specialer cards are worth more.
Yeah,
Was that
so
the same way?
I mean, if there's a first edition holographic Charizard from the first set, it's at least 130,000 American dollars potentially, something like that. But yeah, I mean, the key thing about Pokemon and Pokemon cards is that if you're a teacher and you're listening to this, I just want you to know that, there might be kids that will be talking about Pokemon again. And then you could use this as a way to, talk about what Pokemon experience was like for you, especially for those teachers who grew up in the 90s like us two, And if you're a student listening to this, why don't you talk to your teacher about what they know about Pokemon potentially? Because some of them actually do. I know one that still actively plays Pokemon Go, for example. Some teachers, even if they never played the card game, because Pokemon was everywhere back then, people, even if they just like the art, they would collect it anyway. So, it's nostalgic for us teachers. So it's definitely a really nice conversation point to have with your teachers when talking about Pokemon cards.
Yeah, definitely, because even for me, I remember collecting Pokemon figurines from even Happy Meals. So the nostalgia factor is way up there. So it's something that if you're a student and you're really trying to bond with your teachers, mentioning pop culture such as Pokemon cards or Yu-Gi-Oh cards or Magic the Gathering is something that you could always reach out with. So that's something that we would recommend as well. I remember for me at least, I had a whole luggage bag full of Yu-Gi-Oh cards and my other like childhood toys so I could like wheel them around everywhere. But Yu-Gi-Oh cards were always my favorite to bring around, mainly because there was that one legendary type where you needed to collect all the different cards for, I think it was called Exodus.
Exodia, the 5 pieces.
Exodia, that's the one. You had to like collect, it was a legendary that would basically let you win, and you had to collect all the different parts of that card, put it all into play, and then you basically won the game.
Yeah.
I think that was like the whole premise of it.
Yeah, so you have to collect the head, the 2 arms, and the 2 legs, and when you play them all on the field at the same time, you win instantly, pretty much.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. But from basically Pokemon cards, I do remember you having started or running a Magic the Gathering club.
Yes, yes. So we do run on Tuesdays at lunchtimes. So it's for people of all experience. So if you're brand new, you just want to check out the game, learn how to play. We've got other students there who are more than willing to teach you. You don't need any cards because we have cards that have been donated to us from card stores. So yeah, it's also a really good way to bond with some other teachers there as well. And check out what clubs are around the school. There's Diversity Club as well, for those of you who don't know. Super Smash Brothers Club used to be on before COVID, but of course with COVID going around, there might be a few clubs that have to hold off for a bit as well if we can't social distance or we have to share stuff like controllers, for example. So those might not happen, but still, find a way to connect with your teachers at lunchtime and so on. Yeah.
Yeah, we're always around. We're always happy to talk to you guys as well.
Exactly.
So moving on from that, basically Magic the Gathering, that seems to me as a really nice extracurricular activity. Mr. Leung, what type of extracurricular activity did you get up to back in your day at school?
Yeah, so I mean, looking at the feedback from the Google Forms once again, some students wanted us to talk about a bit more about what high school was like back in our day. And so, in future weeks, we might even get people from different generations, which would be really cool. So I guess extracurricular activities for me was very academic. That's one way to put it. So I know a lot of students, especially here at Crown East, on the weekends, footy might be a very big thing, right? Or even potentially cricket, right? Now, for me growing up, I remember that my Saturdays would normally be in the morning. I have tuition, in other words, extra classes for English and for maths. And then when I finished that, next door was actually a music center. So I would go next door and I would have to learn violin as well. So, but the funny thing is, actually, my parents didn't force me to play a musical instrument. I actually wanted to play it myself. I actually like listening to some movies and listening to soundtracks, and I just love the string sound. So that's why I learned to play violin. English and maths, I didn't have a choice. So, and then on Sundays, I would go to church. So I never really had much of a weekend, I guess, to do any sort of real free time. That's the best way to put it. I remember in primary school, I definitely went for swimming lessons as well. But other than that, in high school, yeah, it was just maths, violin, church, English. How about you, Mr. Young? What was high school like for you? An extracurricular activity?
Mine was very similar to yours because instead of having just math and English class on Saturdays, I went to Saturday school, so Chinese school, which is where, basically for me, it was a 9 o'clock to 4 p.m. experience.
Ooh.
Where I had to learn Chinese from 9 till 2. Then it was English tuition after that, then maths tuition after English until 4. And then I had piano lessons, I had clarinet lessons at school. But then besides from that, I also had involved myself with a lot of bands. So I had bands before school, then after school. Sometimes I had an ensemble or two during lunch.
Oh, wow.
And then, so yeah, it was this whole ordeal that I got into where I just basically committed myself into playing music
Yeah.
as my extracurricular activity as well. So that
Mm.
was kind of fun because they let us get into a lot of like really high leveled competitions and exhibits.
Yep.
So that was really, really good for me. So yeah,
Mm.
it might sound like it was a bit of work. It was work,
Mm.
but it was something that I had a lot of passion in back when I was a student.
Yeah, I
So
mean, on Wednesday mornings for me, that was when our school, the strings group had to get together to play. And we would play at concerts sometimes, and we would go on music camps as well, which was pretty cool. We went to Sydney once and we performed quite often. That was pretty fun.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, if you want to see maybe Mr. Young and myself perform something, him playing the piano, I played the violin, you know, as a duet, you know, let us know. Give a like on the video, subscribe, and you know, put it in the forms, Google Forms that you want to hear us perform together. But yeah, I completely forgot about Chinese school. Actually, I did Chinese school, I guess, more closer to when I was in my BCE level. So I actually did Chinese as a second language as a subject. So, you know, a lot of students think, they look at me and they think, oh, sir, don't you know how to speak Chinese? But, you know, what a lot of people don't understand is that Chinese, there's a lot of dialects, but the most common ones in Australia, I would say, is Mandarin, which is what you've been learning in school. But there's also Cantonese as well, which is what Mr. Young and I speak, which is what we speak in Hong Kong, for example. So I had to learn as well how to speak it properly and how to write properly for VC exams as well. So yeah.
yeah, it was definitely a bit of a gap for I think both of us, I reckon, where
Yep.
we definitely had to learn how to speak and
Oh,
maybe
for
read a bit
sure.
of Cantonese.
Oh
And
yeah.
then we had to also go into another school just to learn Mandarin as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was definitely like not quite a first language approach for us. It was more second
Mm.
language.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of students always ask me as well, every once in a while when I take a cover for Mandarin class, for example, they're like, hey, sir, why is it important for me to learn to speak Mandarin, for example? And then I tell them is that, you know, even though I learned Mandarin in high school, I was actually really bad. I just didn't pay attention in class, Mr. Young. But it wasn't until when I got my first part-time job did I realize like, oh my goodness, this is actually really, really helpful, right? So many customers would come in and they wouldn't even ask me if I can speak English. They just speak to me in Mandarin straight away. So in those years, that's when I guess I really developed my Mandarin really strongly. So yeah, that's our extracurricular activities. Please let us know what you guys do on the weekends. Any extra classes or musical instruments or sports? Yeah, we're keen to hear.
Yeah, it would be really nice to like just share what everyone does and then just kind of celebrate all of our achievements that we've done so far. Speaking about achievements,
Yes.
we ran a segment last time, which was quite successful according to our Google Forms, and that was about study tips. So with
Ah,
study tips, I think it is really important that we do go over them, mainly because of like what I was saying just before. It helps us achieve success, and it's just another approach that you could potentially take or adapt to your own learning experience. And so I believe you had a study tip for today, Mr. Lam.
yeah. So the study tip that I learned quite a bit about was actually caffeine, right? So the thing is, a
Okay.
lot of students tend to think, hey, especially now for those of you who are studying exams, you might be thinking, I need to stay up later, I need to cram, and I need to get all this information as much as possible, right? Now, this advice is useful from year 7 all the way up because, like, even for me, I started drinking coffee when I was year 8, which I technically shouldn't, right? But then after reading some research, what I realized was that coffee is not good for you as it blocks the receptors that helps with memory. So what that means is if you are trying to memorize new things, caffeine doesn't help. It actually makes things worse, right? So if I was to talk to you about the 2 scenarios where you should or shouldn't drink coffee, let's say, for example, Mr. Jung, I asked you, all right, as a consequence for maybe throwing rubbish around in the classroom, I want you to write the alphabet for me 500 times, so A to Z, right? Now, if I'm asking you to write A to Z, are you learning anything brand new?
Oh, definitely not. What I'm doing is just putting into practice what I've already done before.
Exactly. So if there's a scenario, let's say you have to do homework where you don't really have to study anything brand new or learn anything, Coffee can help because it'll help you stay awake and alert for longer. But if you had to memorize a new concept or study something brand new that you're not familiar with, coffee actually doesn't help you, right? They say that it's actually better to like eat an apple instead to kind of help you stay awake and kept motivated. And maybe even do a bit of exercise as well in the middle of the night, maybe doing some squats or some push-ups that could reinvigorate your body. So that's our study tip for you this week.
Yeah.
More to come next week.
Yeah, next week we will have another one that's ready for you as well. So just to kind of touch on what's going to happen or what's happening by the time this is released, a lot of us, or most of us, should be back at school by the time this episode is released. Yes. So one thing that I think is really important for us to touch base on is just how we can rebuild some positive connections. With COVID, obviously having us all put into isolation and learning remotely from home, I feel like a lot of our social skills kind of just went down a little bit. I do find myself maybe walking in the park and I'll see a stranger and I'll actually physically move myself further away or just not be used to engaging in a conversation with strangers anymore. So I think it's really nice for us to be able to just talk about some of the techniques we can use to make sure that we do build those relationships back and then just be able to have kind of a really happy environment to be in, especially at school. So my tip for encouraging positive relationships would be to try and see if you can compliment your friend or just someone you're walking by on an achievement they've made. So what that does is, first of all, you're communicating with them, so that's a start. Second of all, you're really taking that time to really reflect on what they've done and how far they have come. So being able to do that, that just basically allows everyone to celebrate all of our achievements, no matter how big and small it is something that really just makes the person on the other side who's listening to your compliment really feel good about themselves. And if we can all do that to everyone within our school community, what that'll do is that everyone will just feel like they've been really accepted and welcomed back. So that is my kind of tip for you guys for encouragement, just to make sure that we have a really nice transition back into on-site learning.
Yeah, so for example, you can compliment Mr. Young on his new haircut.
Hey.
I know mine's a bit long now. I'm getting mine cut tomorrow night. So you'll see me one day in this hair, kids, and then I'll be back to my normal shorter hair. And like, for example, if for those of you who are year 9, year 10, if you do see Sam, the wellbeing officer, do congratulate him. He, over the remote period, he just had a new baby boy. He's a dad for the first time. I asked him if it was okay to give him a shout out. He said it was all good. He definitely would love to talk to you all about his baby boy, Isaiah. He's got heaps of photos on his phone that he's just so willing to show everyone. So you can compliment him on that.
Definitely do. Find the time as well. So also on the note of coming back to school, what do you know about what's happening for this week, Mr. Leung?
Yes. What's happening in CSE this week? Yes. So parent-teacher interviews. I don't know about yours, Mr. Young. Mine went pretty well. Had quite a few parents come along. Quite a few interpreters to help interpret as well, which is really good. Yeah, this week is going to be a crazy week. Every single year level is doing something to welcome you guys all back. But some of the major ones that I know that's happening to a whole school that might affect everyone is, for example, if you're a year 8 student, Mr. Leslie has organized like a Where's Wally type of hunt. He stuck some pictures of Waldo, so around the school at different places. So you're not meant to take them down. You're just meant to take note of what number it is and then write down like where this Waldo person is, all right? Now, Mr. Leslie says that both students and teachers can play. I found one already in the week that I have found. So I found one, and hint, it's in the orange building somewhere. So that's one, all right? That's all I'm going to say.
Let's start already.
I know, right? I wasn't intentionally looking for it. I was looking around, I was like, what the, isn't that? Yep, so I just left it like that.
But hey, that just means that if you're a listener, that means that you already have a head start on all the other competitors.
Very good. That's right. That's an advantage of listening to our show. Year nines. For P2S this week, we are going to be having an amazing race. So our escape room and our murder mystery went really well. We're going to get you guys to mix up with different classes, run around the school, finish some activities as well. And of course, if you're in year 12, we are going to miss you guys. It's the last week. Trust me. Oh man, I remember year 12 for me that last week. It was so, I wouldn't say I enjoyed all of high school, Mr. Young, but that last week, when you reminisce on the good and the bad and just how much you've grown in high school, it hits you hard. It hits you hard. Definitely.
I got so emotional when it was my last week.
Yeah, I can imagine a few teachers will be asked to take photos together with a lot of students as well. Make sure you say, congratulations to year 12s that you do see. We don't have an assembly this year to celebrate year 12s and their achievements. I believe you have a whole bunch of activities like barbecues and like, you know, dressing in different clothes and stuff like that. You'll have heaps of stuff, year 12s, heaps of celebrations. Every other year level, don't worry. At the end of week 8, we all will have our celebrations as well before we move into step up at week 9, right? And then week 10, we got activities per usual. So yeah,
definitely a term of celebration. Everyone's really accomplished a lot, especially with COVID being around. So yeah, eventually we'll all get to celebrate. But yeah, next week, year 12s, I really wish you the best. Yep. It's going to be probably one of the best weeks of education in terms of secondary school. So yeah, I really hope you look forward to it.
Yeah, definitely come say hi to us before you go.
Yeah, definitely. I'll miss you, a lot of you.
Yeah, it'd be great.
One thing that was mentioned in our Google Forms was to include a watch list. So that was a new segment that was recommended. Yeah. And so with the watch list, what it basically is just a recommendation of the week based off of both of our recommendations, so Mr. Lam and mine. And so, Mr. Lam, what is the show that you would recommend for this week?
Yeah, so, you know, any of you listeners out there, both teacher and student, if you want more segments, then definitely put in the Google Forms and we can probably incorporate it. You know, the more higher votes, of course, we definitely would prioritize that. So thank you for those of you that did give us other suggestions, but if we couldn't fit it into today, sorry, but we'll see if we can fit into future ones as well. I've been watching a 3-part YouTube series, YouTube original series that just finished this week. Each episode's around 25 minutes long, and the YouTube series is called How to Be Behzinga. So for those of you who know me really well, I am, of course, a really huge Sidemen fan. That's not a secret. Sidemen is a group of 7 YouTubers, and as you can see on my phone case, I've got their phone case, official one, right? So one of their members, actually, so even if you don't follow the Sidemen, the show was designed in a way where even people who don't know that group, it's fine. And even if you don't know about YouTube, it's also completely fine, because this story is about this 25-year-old YouTuber whose YouTube name is Behzinga, Behzinga, and I'll include a link to episode 1. But his name's Ethan. He's from England. He's from the UK. Now, growing up, he had a lot of struggles. So both his biological father and then his stepfather also walked down on him. And then his mother also developed cancer as well, whilst it was just the 2 of them. So, fortunately, thank goodness, she beat the cancer. And he used to be 103 kilos when he first started YouTube, right? And then there was a period where he got really depressed, but then he started to find exercise, health, and fitness a passion of his. And then now he's worked his way down. He's definitely probably in the 80s, I would say, 80 kilo range probably, but muscle, good, strong muscle. And so what happened was that the Teenage Cancer Foundation of UK approached him and asked him if he could run the London Marathon, right? So the London Marathon is a huge marathon every year. So he obviously said yes. And so it's just a really inspirational story of how he lost weight and is, doing such a great cause for teenagers, especially who are fighting for cancer. And, you know, even they talk about a few things that happened during the time. So, for example, the London Marathon this year got cancelled due to COVID. So that was a hurdle. What did he do, right? How did he still run the marathon? He himself, he accidentally got COVID as well. So he had COVID. His training regime got screwed up, but he recovered. So yeah, it's just a really awe-inspiring, great YouTube series. I highly recommend it. How to be Behzinga. Links will be in the description down below. Mr. Young, how about you?
Okay, so you had a really good show. Mine is a little bit more Japanese oriented, I guess we could say, and it's actually an anime. So my show of the week is a multi-season show, and it's called Haikyu. I don't know if you've seen Haikyu before.
It's on Netflix.
Yeah, it's on Netflix. And it's basically about a Japanese high school volleyball team. And it starts off with the main character basically being a part of a team that is kind of just made up of members who just wanted to fill up the club member count. And so he competes in a competition and graduates into high school after that competition. And it basically just focuses on how that student, the main character, upskills his ability to play volleyball throughout all of his matches to become one of the most, I guess, overpowered players. So it's kind of like really nice to watch, mainly because humor's great, characters are great, and they don't start off ridiculously overpowered. It's all about that progression from being someone who's a novice player to someone who's extremely passionate and can really make their mark on a volleyball court. So that is my recommendation, Haikyu. I'll also link it down in the description box as well.
Cool. That would be great,
Okay.
Mr. Young. Yeah. So I think, you know, talking about Japanese high school and clubs, what you just mentioned, I think that would be a very interesting topic for another day. I think we might even bring in a guest to talk a bit about what Japan life is like. Actually, in our Google Forms, someone actually wanted us to interview some of our assistant principals, and one of them did live in Japan for a while. And you know, Japanese clubs, what they do there, it's actually amazing. Their high schools, their programs, they actually open their weekends for like clubbers and stuff like that. So we'll talk about that another day, because look at the time, we probably have got like 5-10 minutes left. Yeah, based on Google Forms, that's what people said, that they like it at around half an hour mark. Yeah. So yeah, we'll leave that till next time.
Okay, so kind of before we get to the shout outs, I think everyone has one question.
Yes.
How's your drinking water habits been going?
Yes. This week it hasn't declined, but hasn't improved either. I would say it's the same. Definitely, if you see me around school, please keep reminding me to drink water. I'll keep it up as much as possible. But yeah.
Just tell him to stay hydrated.
Maybe they should make an anime about that, Mr. Young, drinking water. Because for those of you who don't know anything about anime, there's an anime for everything, right? I've seen a baking bread anime. I've seen like your regular sports anime, soccer, American football. There's anime about the human body that you've shown in your class, Mr. Young, I believe.
Yeah, definitely. So the Year 9s had been able to see cells at work. So that's one anime you can watch if you want to learn a little bit more of immunology. I've actually seen an anime, and it's a McDonald's recruitment ad. But they made it into an anime.
It's so beautiful, that ad. I love it. It's 2 parts.
It was so good. Yeah, it was so good.
There's an anime for everything. So if you think that anime is not for you, trust me, there's something for you. It's either really normal everyday, where like could be students going to high school, to as weird as like vampires who are also in a video game world who need to dominate this, like it can go as crazy and as normal as you want. Yeah, so I highly recommend it.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so everyone's worked really hard throughout all of COVID and throughout just this whole year in general, pre or post COVID. So here for last episode, we had a few suggestions or a few shout outs to teachers. So I just want to give a shout out to Miss Hannah, Miss Kathy, Miss Monahan, I believe it is also Miss Candy,
Yep.
Miss Brack, Miss Reed.
Mm.
There was a particular shout out to Mr. Strange as well.
Mm-hmm.
We had Miss Gray, and then also, let me just double check. I believe it was a Mr. Jovic.
Oh, Miss Jovic, yes.
Miss Jovic, yeah,
Yep.
Miss
Miss
Jovic.
Jovic. And of course, Hannah and Kathy from Wellbeing. Yep. And I actually got
Yep.
to catch up with them and told them that people were giving them a shout out, and they, they were so happy to hear that. So definitely, if you've got any more shout outs to the amazing teachers that we have at school, do let us know in the Google Forms, and we'll give them a shout out as well. But what's one other thing that I've done is we actually asked some of the teachers to show some love to our students and appreciation as well, So so far, we just opened up the Year 9 teachers first, just going to have a little bit of a trial before we extend it to more of a school. So I've got a few names here, and this is in regards to P2S in general. So I've asked the P2S teachers to give shout outs to different students and why they want to shout out these students. So let me just pull up my P2S list. Firstly, for 9C, I want to give a shout out to Ezat and Milad. You guys have done an absolutely amazing job doing remote learning. Hope to see you guys keep it up back at school as well. Miss Davey wants to give a shout out to Jai, Max, and Declan for doing an amazing P2S video that won our Year 9 P2S competition. It was absolutely memeing, crazy, hilarious, funny video. Loved it. Miss Reed wants to shout out like all of 9K. They've been so amazing they've been so amazing with the cameras always on and the mics turned on. A special shout out to Jai McNamara for that. 9E, Mrs. Mitchell would like to shout out Aditya and Atav and Josh Kanja for being amazing and awesome during this time, for being engaging in home group P2S. Miss Chand would like to shout out Mo and Oslam for carrying the team with the questions, right? Absolute champs. Miss Moss would like to shout out Rudy for great journal writing for P2S, always asking questions and to get to know people better. Great job. I have, and this one is from both Miss Candy and from Mr. Churchyard, and the last one is a big shout out to Johar from 9A, always punctual, outstanding, using the microphone and camera, and always helping people as well with their technology when need be. So that is this week's shout outs.
So yeah, if you have any shout outs to any particular student or teacher, please let us know so that we can celebrate what they've done for everyone in the future episodes.
Yeah. So I guess before we do finish today, I do want to promote once again the Google Forms. Please let us know, because at the moment we've heard that 50% of you think that the time length is just right? But if I've talked to a lot of you around school, and I know a lot of you have said that, hey, the time length is really good, then let us know through that and what segments you want to hear.
Definitely. So with segments, we will eventually get to incorporating more segments in as we go. However, if there is something that we feel like we can just talk about in one of our existing segments, we'll kind of just make sure to incorporate as well.
Cool.
Anyway, that kind of is the end of today's episode.
Yeah,
so,
I've already got a few ideas on what to talk about next week, Mr. Young, already.
Yeah, same here. So, with that being said, I hope you guys have an amazing time. We will see you next time.
Same shout out per usual. People, drink more water. Mr. Young, what do you normally say?
Pardon?
Do you remember what you said last week? It was like stay.
Oh, I have bad memory.
Stay happy and stay healthy.
Oh yeah, definitely stay happy and stay healthy. And I look forward to seeing you guys back at school.
See you all back at school, everyone. Can't wait. Bye.
Bye.